Today we have the pleasure to talk about Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman, OpenAI by Karen Hao. In the history books, this era of artificial intelligence may be remembered as a golden age of innovation, when humans first unleashed thinking machines into the world. But that future is not guaranteed. The decision to pursue bigger, more powerful AI was driven by an almost mythical quest for wisdom, an obsession with what the machines might reveal to us about ourselves. And the story of this quest is a story of hubris and harm, of shortcuts taken and risks courted. This is the story of what might still go wrong. As I mentioned, this is Karen Hao's book, and she is an award-winning journalist who has spent years reporting on the AI industry. Now, it's worth noting that this book is not about OpenAI per se. It's about the world that OpenAI inhabits, the world that it helped create, the people who built it, and the communities who paid the price for it. So this is really much more of a socio-political book rather than one focused on the technical aspects of AI. But let me tell you, the technical aspects are still very important. Let me explain. The idea of artificial intelligence dates back to the mid-20th century, but it only really took off in the 2010s and early 2011, when researchers realized they could use deep learning algorithms to solve problems that previously required human intelligence, things like recognizing faces in photographs or understanding natural language. The AI boom that followed attracted a lot of attention and investment, especially after ChatGPT came onto the scene in late 2022. Suddenly, everyone was talking about AI, and everyone thought they had to get in on the action. Investors started throwing money at startups left and right. Some of them were working on real, practical applications for AI. Others just wanted to get in on the hype train. You know the type. They threw spaghetti at the wall and saw what stuck. But as Hao points out, the real value in AI doesn't come from clever algorithms. It comes from something much more basic: compute, massive quantities of compute. Compute is the lifeblood of the AI industry, and those who control the flow of compute will control the future. At the heart of the AI industry is a hunger for three key ingredients: compute, massive datasets, and human labor. The first two are pretty easy to understand. The more compute power you have, the more complex models you can build, and the better those models will perform. The same goes for datasets. The larger and more diverse your dataset, the better your model will be able to generalize and make accurate predictions. But it's the third ingredient, human labor, that makes things really interesting. In fact, let me interrupt myself here and just read this passage, because it's such a good example of how writing. This is a little bit longer than a quote, but I think it's worth it. Quote, "The reality of building artificial intelligence is that it requires a lot of tedious work that machines cannot do yet. Curating datasets, debugging code, deciding which projects are worth pursuing. These tasks require human intelligence and human judgment to keep up with the pace of progress. The AI industry has sought to automate as much as possible, but it turns out there's a limit to how far automation can go. The result is a hidden workforce toiling away on the details that make today's AI possible." End quote. So, the reason I love this passage so much is that it's really illustrative of the book as a whole. Yes, there's a lot of focus on human labor, but it's not just about putting a human face on the AI boom. It's also about exposing the hidden costs of the AI boom. In the race to build ever more sophisticated AI systems, the industry has overlooked or outright ignored the needs of the people whose lives are being disrupted or destroyed. Now, throughout the book, Howe highlights how the pursuit of scale at all costs has led to a new form of empire, one that is built on the extraction of both raw materials and human labor from the developing world. For example, in one chapter, she tells the story of how OpenAI scoured Kenya for data laborers who would transcribe audio recordings of conversations between humans and chatbots. The workers were promised decent pay and working conditions, but in reality, they were subjected to long hours, low pay, and dangerous working conditions. Many of them were also exposed to sensitive information, such as transcripts of conversations between therapists and their patients. But the most insidious part of the job was that it was essentially a black box. The workers did not know how their work was being used, and they had no say in the products that were being developed. Howe argues that this is just one example of how the AI industry is pursuing scale at all costs. The result is a new form of empire that is built on the extraction of both raw materials and human labor from the developing world. Another example of this is the company work on training AI models to recognize different objects in images. To do this, they need huge numbers of labeled images, which means that someone has to actually sit down and label each image. So you can imagine how many images they need to train a model to recognize 10,000 different objects. That's a lot of images and a lot of labels. And where do you get that many images and labels from? Mostly from the developing world, where people are willing to work for less money. Now, these examples are just the tip of the iceberg. Throughout the book, Howe gives us a glimpse into the inner workings of OpenAI and the AI industry as a whole. And what we see is a world that is driven by a messianic belief in AGI, artificial general intelligence. According to this belief, AGI is inevitable, and it will happen soon. And once it does, everything will be great. Humanity will enter a new golden age, and all of our problems will be solved. The only question is, will we get there safely? Now, I don't want to give too much away, so I'm not going to say whether or not I think they get there safely. But I will say that Howe paints a pretty bleak picture, the future of AI, if we continue down this path. We are heading for a world where a handful of companies and individuals control the flow of compute, data, and human labor. And if that happens, we will have created a new form of inequality that will dwarf the wealth gap between the richest and the poorest. The problem is that none of this is science fiction. It's happening right now. The AI boom has already created a small group of extremely wealthy investors and executives, but it has also created a large number of people who are struggling to make ends meet. We are seeing this all over the world, but it is especially evident in places like Kenya, where people are willing to work for very low wages to provide the labor that powers the AI industry. If we want to avoid this future, we need to start thinking differently about AI. We need to stop thinking of it as a panacea and start thinking of it as a tool that can be used for good or for bad. And we need to make sure that we are using it in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few. Now, before we finish up, I want to touch on something that a lot of reviewers have brought up. Allegations that the book is biased against OpenAI. Now, I do not want to get into the whole bias debate, because ultimately, I think it's a red herring. What matters most is what the book tells us about the state of the AI industry today. And what it tells us is that we are at a crossroads. We can either continue down the path of letting a small group of companies and individuals control the flow of AI and decide how it is used, or we can start thinking differently about AI and start thinking about it as a tool that can be used for good or for bad. Ultimately, this is a book about power. It's about the power to control the flow of information, the power to shape the future of technology, and the power to decide what kind of world we want to live in. And it's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the real impact of AI and what we can do to make sure that it is used for good. That said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the book. Have you read it? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. Thanks again, and take care.